Um, I'm Jillian Graber. I'm the Executive Director of Protect PT. We're going to get started here. We all are also recording this. So there were some folks that wanted to come but couldn't. So we decided to record it. We can also send you the recording if you'd like to share it with your neighbors. Also, you can be sent the PowerPoint as well. So we'll most likely send a follow-up email probably tomorrow morning, and it'll have the link to the recording as well as the PowerPoint. So all the materials will be there for you. We also have some action items outlined in our little fact sheet here today. And so I'm going to introduce Jim Cirilano. He's our community advocate, and he has most of the presentation. And we also have Tom Pike. Awesome. Okay. Tom Pike is our environmental policy advocate. So between these guys, we work to propose different policies that will help protect people from oil and gas infrastructure in the future. And that's what Jim has taken. It's been like 2 years since we first did the ordinance, and I'm going to give this to you.
It's about a year. So, okay, well, thanks. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. It's really good to see everybody and glad that everybody's taking an interest in it. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is the ordinance, the Penn Township ordinance specifically. And one of the things that's important about an ordinance is that it 4 months. And now you're seeking to act on it right now. And they actually went to the Board of Commissioners, and the Board of Commissioners passed the resolution. All right, got it. All right, I'm trying again. It's a test. All right. Yeah, it's all right. So the 8 conditions that were provided for in the consent order are installation of sound walls, third-party sound monitoring, landscape restoration, 24-hour hotline in case of an emergency, so you can call somebody up in case the thing blows up. Third-party air monitoring, light mitigation plans. As you can see, this is an image of a light tower, of the fracking tower. And it's pretty high, and they shine lights down onto the pad, so it's very bright. You could ask Trish about that; she'll tell you. The school board coordinated traffic plan and the requirement that no trucks idle on the pad or on the roads, and air monitoring for any DEP reportable spill. And the spills are important because each of these wells that is fracked. Every well that there's on a well, on any given well pad, there's going to be 15 or 20 wells potentially. And for each and every well, there are about 15 to 20 million gallons of fracking fluid that are used. And that is all pumped in. It's got chemicals in it. It's got some PFAS, benzenes, toluenes, and then the water that comes back out of it is the flowback, which is the frac fluid. And then after that, there is produced water that is oftentimes radioactive. It contains a lot of other VOCs, that is volatile organic compounds, that come back out of the well because of the depth of the well and the elements and the contaminants and the radioactivity that exists that far underground. So the risk of this new industry should fall on the industry, is our view. Be as citizens, be the ones to bear this kind of risk, this kind of burden. This is an industry that is profiting a few companies, a few people, and the brunt of the hazard is being borne by the people in this room. And DEP is supposed to protect us, but they're really not really doing a real good job. They're basically the business of permitting, not in the business of regulating. And there's a big difference between issuing a permit for something and then making sure that the rules and regulations that are associated with that permit are actually followed. So what are the effects of these gas wells? These are a heavy industrial activity. This is akin to a steel mill or a coke plant or anything like that. They're heavy industrial activities. It's not like, a small manufacturing facility that is furniture or making some other thing. This is a very heavy industrial activity involving drilling a mile underground and then laterally a mile or more, and extracting gas, trucking it away. It includes a lot of hazards. enormous machinery, heavy, large truck traffic, hundreds of thousands of gallons of toxic and radioactive wastewater. There's constant, continuous noise, day and night. Whenever a frac is taking place, they can't stop. They have to keep on doing it until the entire thing is fracked out. That means 24/7 for a month at a time. Okay, there's brilliant light throughout the night. It spills over into the residential community. There's potential for, permanently fouling private water wells and streams, uh, fouling the groundwater permanently, because this is traveling down through the level of the strata in the geologic strata that where the groundwater exists. It's drilled through there. There's casing around the pipes that is supposed to protect any groundwater, the level of groundwater from being exposed to the chemicals that are being injected at high pressures into the ground to crack the rock a mile below the ground. But, that's only the case if the casing doesn't fail. And in fact, casing failures are not uncommon. And there was one recently in an injection well in Plum Borough. That is where they take this waste fluid and inject it into the ground to get rid of it, because they don't have anything to do with it. They can't get rid of it. There's no way to rehabilitate this water. There's no way to recycle this water. Once they use this 15, 20 million gallons of water for each well, that water is out of circulation. It's got to be treated as hazardous waste. And what they're doing in Plum Borough is they're injecting it into the ground. Well, the casing around that injection well failed. We don't know what happened to the water that escaped into the geologic strata, but it's there. So there's potential for explosions, discharge of toxic gases, water and chemicals. And of course, if your property happens to be next to or in close proximity to one of these gas wells or gas well pads, I can't imagine that anybody is going to pay what your market value is right now once that well is there. So this ordinance that we want to change, okay, and the reason why we want to change it is because of these shortcomings. It allows gas wells within 600 feet of homes, churches, schools, and private water wells. That's far too close in our estimation. And not only that, it's based on studies done by Harvard Medical School and by Yale. The radioactivity that it's transmitted based on the Harvard study extends like in terms of tens of miles away from the gas well. With respect to the incidence of childhood leukemia, it's twice the rate of childhood leukemia within 1 kilometer. So within 1,200. Yeah, there's a doubling of childhood leukemia. Right now, we can have gas wells within 600 feet of homes, 300 feet of streams. There is no planning for future development of gas wells, gas lines, compressor stations, pipelines. There is haphazard installation of toxic waste impoundments and other toxic waste disposal practices, and there are no protections specific to residents or your property. So if one of these wells is proposed to be placed next to your house, and all that would take would be one of your neighbors to sell their mineral rights to a company like Apex or Olympus, you could have a brand new neighbor. So what we are asking that this ordinance be changed to provide for is more adequate setback provisions. It's currently 600 feet. What the new ordinance is asking for is a 2,500 foot setback, which is a lot more. It's 4 times more. We are asking for a 10-year plan for future proposed developments associated with a gas well at issue. So currently, what happens is these energy companies come in and they submit a plan, an application for a gas well pad. Let's say it's Poseidon, and Poseidon is up by the Valley landfill. And when they applied for that well pad, they said, we're going to put a well pad here. It's going to have between 15 and 20 unconventional wells drilled on it. It's going to have this many tanks. It's going to have, this driveway. It's going to have so many trucks a day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Now, after Poseidon was installed and is operational, subsequent to that, they applied for the Aphrodite well pad, which was within 3/4 of a mile of the Poseidon pad. And after they got approval for the Aphrodite pad, they said, well, we want a compressor station that is within 1/4 mile of the Aphrodite pad. And oh yeah, we want a pipeline to go between all these pads. Well, those were all surprises to the community after the Poseidon well pad was applied for and approved. In other words, they didn't have to tell the township what their plans were respecting how they were going to build out this development. The rest of that stuff was a surprise. What the new ordinance that we're suggesting be enacted is, okay, if you want to apply to put a well pad down, we'll take that application, but part of that application has to be your disclosure to us what else you are going to ask for in order to make sure that you can this well pad. Because right now they put the well pad there that's Poseidon, and they said, well, you know what? We can't just have this sitting here. We can't get the gas off site. We need this pipeline. We need this compressor station. We need this other well pad in order to make this whole thing functional. Well, that was never disclosed, and we believe that it should be whenever they make an application for anything that they do. We think that there should be bonding and insurance in a minimum of $25 million in the event of an accident. So everybody here drove here today, I believe. Is that not correct? And I bet you all have automobile insurance. If you don't, you're breaking the law. And the reason why you have auto insurance is if you wreck into somebody because you're driving carelessly, your insurance will pay for their damages. Well, believe it or not, these well pads, these energy companies aren't required to have liability insurance. I mean, is that unbelievable? I mean, if something were to happen, if they were to have a spill that were to contaminate a stream, if they were to have an explosion that were to destroy a number of houses, they are not required to carry insurance to cover that. Now, who's going to pay for that? They said, well, they're big companies, they'll pay for it. Well, you know what? Good luck with that. And as a matter of fact, when I brought this to the attention of the commissioners, one of the commissioners, Chuck Conkis, said, we have Olympus in the room right now. They were there for another matter. And Mr. Conkis said, well, Olympus is here. Olympus, do you guys have liability insurance, don't you? And the attorney for Olympus stood up and said, well, I really don't know. I can't answer that. And, well, there's two things. One, if they have insurance, that's great. That's really great. And I'm glad that they do. And that's really responsible. But wouldn't you want to know? And if you require it, well, then they've got to tell you. And if you require it, well, that's just the responsible thing to do. That's the cost of doing business. That's the cost of driving your car around town, is you got to pay State Farm to cover your butt and to cover your neighbors in case you hit them. Bonding is another issue, and bonding is the opposite side of liability insurance. Liability insurance is if there's an accident. Well, these wells are going to run out of gas at some point in time, and it looks like they're running out these days around 5 years, okay, which is not a whole lot of time. Okay, once that gas is gone, there's no more money to be made from that well, but there's still a tank farm there. There are still these big towers. There are still, spills or whatever occurred on the property that's contaminating the land there. Who's going to clean that up? Okay, now the gas is gone. The company is an LLC. Once those wells are gone, they're not going to stick around to clean it up. What we're saying is, if you want to put a well pad here in Penn Township, you've got to buy a bond. And the bond is going to be providing to clean this up. So when you leave and you leave your big mess, there's going to be an insurance policy that's going to come in and say, we've got, $25 million that we'll use to remediate whatever mess you have here. And in fact, this is funny too, because Mr. Conkis didn't have enough when he asked the first question regarding liability insurance. He said, well, the Olympus is here. You guys have bonding, don't you? And remarkably, he asked that question, and the attorney for Olympus stood up and said, well, really, I don't know whether we, but wouldn't it be good to know that you did have it? Okay. We want to have adequate studies, documentation of proposed the plan and its effect. We want specified fines and penalties for failure to comply with the ordinance. Now, we have an ordinance that has provisions that you can't violate. Well, what do you think happens? What do you think the ordinance says is going to happen to you if you violate one of its terms? Anybody? Nothing. There's nothing there. There's no penalty there. I mean, that's like a speeding ticket. If you didn't have money penalties or points, there'd be a lot of people speeding around all the time. But, that's not the case with oil and gas. They have regulations that they have to follow. But in Penn Township, if they don't follow the regulation, nothing happens. So our current ordinance, the one that we want to put in, the one that we are looking for them to enact, has fines and penalties, and it has penalties if you do it more than 3 times. Other things happen. And that's the way it should be, because, that's the way the rest of the world works. I mean, that's just how it is. We've drafted this, we've presented it to the commissioners for over a year now. We've gone up there monthly and asked them to send it to the planning commission, and they just won't do it. They need a push from their, the voters. They need a push from the community members. They need a push from people to say, look, if you won't do this for us, because this concerns us, we're going to vote you out. We're going to vote somebody else in. I mean, that's really what's going to take. So we wrote this ordinance here in-house that we're proposing. Okay, but we didn't make it up. Not like we sat around here and said, oh, insurance would be a good idea. Oh, bonding would be a good idea. We looked at other ordinances around the Commonwealth, and particularly around Western Pennsylvania. And there are ordinances that are in communities, in municipalities nearby ours that have those things. For instance, Indiana Township and Oakmont Borough, they require insurance of $25 million per incident. Bell Acres and Center Township both have fines for violations of $600 per day. Center Township is $500 per day per violation. The other requirements that we're talking about, Bell Acres requires hydrogeologic studies, air studies, environmental studies, noise studies, traffic studies. North Fayette requires traffic noise at a yearly review for no violations. Economy Borough requires noise studies, et cetera, et cetera. And the list goes on, and this isn't complete by any means. This fracking is fairly of the way and the speed at which local governments and municipalities actually work and change. It takes a long time for government to move. It moves very slowly. But regardless, these are examples of some that have these things that Penn Township doesn't, and that we believe that they should. So what can we do to promote this change? And it's a positive change for Penn Township, and it's a positive change for you, your property, and for the residents here. You should email to your commissioners, call them, ask them for more protections from oil. There, we've submitted. They sick and tired of me. They are sick and tired of most of the folks from this organization, because they don't want to hear it. But they're well aware of the ordinance that I'm talking about to you tonight. And if you call them and said, Protect PT has submitted an ordinance for review, we really support that. We would like you to send that to the Planning Commission. We would like that to be sent to the Planning Commission for review. We would like you to, have that as a draft proposal, and we would like you to vote on that. And that's the only way that it's going to happen. Talk about the specific things that are important to you and your family. Talk about the setbacks. What you have in front of you is a handout, and it talks about certain points that you can bring up. I mean, this is not something that you have to talk about like I'm talking about to you tonight, because I've been involved with this now for about 2 you know, I could dish out, you know, even after about half a dozen years. But, you know, you guys, we're not expecting to do that, but you do have this handout that offers bullet points for you to talk to the particular commissioner. And each of you, depending on where you live, has a different commissioner. On the back side of this, you'll see the Penn Township map that identifies. It will tell you who your commissioner is, phone numbers and email addresses. And if you write them or call them, don't just do it once or twice or 3 times. You know, do it a half a dozen times, a dozen times, be a pain in the ass, because that's really what it's going to take. I mean, you know, it's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease, and, you know, this is something to squeak about, because, you know, it's once they put it in, you're not getting rid of it. I mean, once this goes in, it's never coming out. You'll never get rid of the Poseidon path. It'll run out of gas before you could ever get it removed. We have stopped many of the other paths from going in. And I like to say to people, it's funny happening. It's because we've been successful. Exactly right. Nothing happened. We're winning. You know, it's when you know, things happen that people get upset. And once it happens, it's way too late. And what really needs to happen right now, and if we did get this ordinance passed, we would not have another gas pad in Penn Township. There's just no room if you have a 2,500-foot setback for a gas pad to be put in. What do you have to say?
Yeah, so, and some people will say, oh, well, you can't do that because that's been there. Well, they already have it here. They already have infrastructure here, so it's not in violation, it's not what is considered exclusionary. So if you call up your commissioner, oh, that ordinance, that's exclusionary. No, it's not, actually. They're ill-informed. And
So what that means, what Jillian's talking about, is municipalities can't enact certain businesses. And the easiest one to talk about, the most famous one, has always been, you know, the adult bookstore. Nobody wants an adult bookstore. The Supreme Court said, you know, it's freedom of speech, you know, it's freedom of commerce. You have to allow in some place an adult bookstore to be there. You know, you can't just say no more of that. You can't do that. You can't have an exclusionary ordinance. And what an exclusionary ordinance is something that's written in such a way that it excludes a particular activity completely from the municipality. Now, if we had a 2,500-foot setback, there would be no more gas pads put in Penn Township. And the commissioners may try to tell you, we can't enact that because it's exclusionary. Well, the fact of the matter is, we already have several well pads and haven't excluded it. As a matter of fact, it's already here. You don't have to fill up just because you're not allowed to have an exclusionary ordinance doesn't mean you have to fill up your township with adult bookstores. You know, once you got one, that's enough. You know, once you got a well pad, that's enough. And we've got 3 or 4 now already. So it's not exclusionary. If they tell you that it is exclusionary, you can respond by saying, no, we already have 4 well pads in Penn Township. That no new ordinance that excludes them would be considered to be exclusionary.
Other ordinances as well. And so folks sometimes contact us, and in some cases it's local officials, local commissioners contact us and say, hey, we see what you're doing here, we really like it, because because we don't want the impacts near us. And so we would like to write something. So Jim has analyzed their ordinances, analyzed other people's and what they had done. In fact, there was an conventional ordinance proposed in Penn Township. I want to say back in 2018 or 19. It was a paragraph and a half. I went through and added 2 pages to that ordinance, and they enacted every single thing. So it can happen. We've had success in other communities. They enacted this ordinance for an injection well in Clara Township that Jim wrote, and they had to withdraw their application because they could no longer put it in that community because that community has high bound watersheds. It has headwaters, and the people that lived there knew that they were going to be impacted because they saw what's happening in Forum, they saw what's happening in other places, and so they knew. So they came to us, we took action, we helped them out, and it worked. So it can be accomplished. This is something we've done in 4 other communities, time and time again. It's the Penn Township commissioners that are blocking this from happening in your community. So I want to make sure that's clear. And then I think Tom has some stuff to talk about with petition. Did you have anything else to add?
No, except for the fact that, you know, the commissioners meeting are the 2nd and 3rd Wednesdays.
Okay, sorry, everybody has to squint into the light now. So based on what we heard tonight, a show of hands, who would be willing to sign a petition asking them to consider this ordinance? Boy, are you in luck. I'm gonna start this in the back here. This being Penn Township, I have provided a pen. So the petition basically just calls for the ordinance that we sent them. Another show of hands, who'd be willing to email your council members? Cool. Awesome. And if you email them, true or false, you can use personal perspectives in your email. True, right? True or false, you can include facts about fracking and the way it might impact the community. True. And where can you find those if you don't know them off the top of your head, if you're not a fracking expert? That's, yeah, Google, also great, both great answers. And if you need backing of facts, you can always come to us. My business card is, well, I think they may have all gone. If you need policy details, if you need facts, if you need studies, I'll go get more of my cards and you can reach out to us. Go ahead. On what yeah, it's on, yes, and so I will give that to each of you after the petition has made its way all the way around. I don't want to have a million things circulating at once. I do want to talk briefly about another related issue. Do you folks know, do you get your water from Beaver Run Reservoir? My family does. So bingo. Yes. Currently 2023, during which half of the year was in Westmoreland County, had a drought watch. More than 300 million gallons of water were extracted for fracking. Remember, fracking stands for hydraulic fracturing. It means they're taking water and they're injecting it deep underground to crack the rock. The water that is used for this generally stays, some of it comes back up as what's called produced water. And unfortunately, that water is no longer usable. It's not fit for human consumption, even if you remediate it. Partly this is because of the chemicals that are deliberately included in it, the lubricants, the proppant, and so on. Partly it's the other naturally occurring radioactive substances. When we talk about fracking water being radioactive, that's where it comes from. It's not actually part of drilling machinery that introduces it. It's naturally occurring underground. So the water cannot re-enter the watershed. It's not like any other form of consumption. Your household, even if you've used even if you put various chemicals in the water, household chemicals, modern treatment plants can remediate that and it can be used downstream. The same is not true of what gets used in fracking. It is the difference essentially between leasing water and buying water to own it. It's single-use water. It's gone. And so we are asking MAUC, that's the Municipal Authority of Westmoreland County. MAUC operates Beaver Run Reservoir, among other water infrastructure in the area. We're asking them for a few reforms that we think are pretty common sense. First, automatically pause fracking withdrawals when there's a drought declared. Second, implement a water conservation latest science, because fracking has changed a lot over the third, limit the total number of withdrawals to half as much as was taken in 2023. And fourth, charge a different uses the water up permanently so it can't be reused, right? And actually, we've had some opening conversations with MAUC and they seem most interested in the last one, which kind of surprised me because I wasn't sure how they were going to receive that. But it is entirely possible that we could win on this point. So show of hands, who would be interested in signing this petition? Awesome. You folks rock. I'm going to send this one around too. And then you can ask, yes, go ahead. Yes, you can sign them both. They are going different places. That one goes to the Penn Township Commissioners and that one goes to the Municipal Authority. If you've already signed that one, I wouldn't worry about it again. I don't know if you will have signed this one yet, but if you double sign it, we will check before we turn them in. Yes. Oh, you would have signed it then. Yes. Big Swickley Creek. Yes.
You know, talk about spitting in your face, whatever possible to raise it.
Yeah.
They're screwing us because
Yes.
they're putting in more permits.
Yes. Swickley Creek just got permitted for a very similar thing than we're petitioning MAUC about. And it's a massive amount of water. It's enough water they could deplete the creek if they actually took it all. So Jillian is passing now. Trish, you had asked, can we give out handouts with the bullet points of what we're asking for? This is she's given, you have the petitions there too, right, Jillian? Okay, yeah, so we have, for folks who are interested, one last show. Who's willing to get friends and sign a couple of these? It's totally optional. Awesome. We have petitions that you can take home. Just bring them back to us or call us. We'll come and pick them up. Just remember, any signatures you get 18 have to be either a resident or taxpayer in Penn Township. Well-intentioned people who don't live in Penn Township always look for ways to help, and we tell them you can become a member of the organization, support it financially with volunteer hours, or there are things we do in your community too, probably. But we ask that only taxpayers sign the specific petitions because although we care about the opinions of everybody, the commissioners are really only focused narrowly on this specific group of people. So I just went over a lot. Yeah. Anybody else want to take a petition home for their friends or family? Yes.
We were told years as well. Tom, but he's gone. He's not. He was pulling. I couldn't recover.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, considering the amount of ridiculous things that they put in a Facebook page, I think this is probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I.
I mean, I'll
Yeah.
put it in Facebook. I
You
don't-
First off,
what's it gonna do?
Yes. First off, yes, just to confirm, this isn't, oh, I'm sorry, Trish.